Welcome to this presentation about building a culture of respect. In this training, you will learn how to practice consent in everyday interactions. My name is Katie Parks, and I am an assistant director in the CWU Office of Health Promotion. I've been working in the field of violence prevention and response since 2016. My work involves teaching tools for respectful, healthy communication like consent and boundaries. I want people to experience the profound effects of deep connection in their relationships. In my free time, I enjoy hiking, reading, and spending time outdoors. So, I want to give a content warning for this training. While there is no explicit discussion of sexual harm in this presentation, discussion of consent and consent violations may bring up difficult emotions for those engaging with this presentation. If you have experienced any form of interpersonal or sexual violence, you have options. If you would like to discuss your experience with a confidential support person, you can connect with a path advocate. They can provide you with options and help you determine the best path forward for your healing. If you would like to report your experience to the university, you may contact the Office of Civil Rights Compliance and Title IX. They can tell you your options for supportive measures through the university and complaint resolution options. You are not alone. Help is available. Here at CWU, we are committed to fostering a community where respect is the cornerstone of all of our interactions. We can use skills like practicing consent in everyday situations, setting and respecting boundaries, and helping out in problem situations to build this culture at CWU. Today, we'll be focusing on consent. So, what is consent? If you're using the worksheet, pause the video and write down what consent means to you. Consent generally means agreement, approval, or permission. We often talk about consent in sexual situations, but consent can be used in everyday interactions to build respectful relationships and spaces. Consent is a skill that benefits from practice. Here at CWU, we use the acronym CATS to describe the various elements of consent. If you're using the worksheet, pause the video and answer the questions for each letter of CATS. Think about these questions specifically as they relate to consent. And as a hint, some questions may have more than one correct answer. All right, let's review the correct answers. Can communication be verbal, nonverbal, or both/either? Communication can be verbal or nonverbal. Nonverbal communication does carry more risk of miscommunication or lack of understanding, so it is best used with people you know well. What does agreement mean? Agreement means everyone must understand what they're consenting or agreeing to, and agreement continues throughout the experience or relationship. Signing a contract may be appropriate in some circumstances, but it isn't necessary in most interactions that involve consent. And if someone is unsure if they want to participate, that is not agreement. It is an opportunity for further discussion and understanding of why they aren't sure. Can consent be taken away? Yes, consent can be taken away or changed at any time. And lastly, what does straightforward mean? Straightforward means there are no assumptions or ambiguity to agree, and no one should feel pressured, forced, or convinced to agree. It's important to have some form of communication to make sure everyone is on the same page. And no one should ever feel like they can't say no, because that isn't consent. If you're using the worksheet, pause the video and write down your ideas about what might complicate consent, particularly in sexual situations. One factor that complicates consent is power dynamics, such as someone's age, position, or title. Imagine if your professor invited you to their house for dinner. Do you feel like you could say no, knowing they could lower your grade if you do? You may feel pressured or forced to agree, either directly or indirectly. Power dynamics infringe on the straightforwardness of consent. Another factor is substance use. People cannot legally consent to sex if they are incapacitated by alcohol or other drugs. But people who are intoxicated are also at risk of not understanding what they're agreeing to or not respecting somebody else's lack of agreement. A question we frequently get asked is what if both people are under the influence of substances when sex is initiated? And the answer comes back to risk. Being under the influence of any substance elevates the risk of causing harm to the other person or even causing them trauma. So it's important for individuals to think in advance about what risk they're willing to take regarding substance use and consent. That way, they're more prepared to increase their chance of having consensual interactions and decrease the chance of harming someone. A third factor is called sexual geographies. So imagine a typical residence hall setup. It's a small space with a desk chair, and a bed. This is a prime example of miscommunication that can occur when people are relying on nonverbal communication. Is inviting somebody to your residence hall room an invitation to hang out as friends or an invitation for sex? Is hanging out on someone's bed nonverbal consent for sex? The unspoken implications of a particular space can lead to mixed signals and a lack of straightforwardness. The last factor is cis heteronormativity or sexual scripts. In relationships between cisgender heterosexual individuals, there is something called a sexual script. A sexual script is an unspoken assumption that tells people how to move through sexual situations. This includes expected behaviors, roles, and progression of sexual encounters. These scripts are reinforced through media, pornography, and stereotypical gender roles for men and women. The progression piece can be particularly harmful because it can serve as an assumption of how sexual encounters should progress without all individuals consenting to the specific behaviors. Agreement is ongoing throughout the experience and means all individuals are consenting to all behaviors, and consent can be taken away at any time. If you're using the worksheet, pause the video and write 3 ways you can use consent with the people in your life. So here are some examples of everyday consent. You can ask if it's okay to take a photo or video of someone, post that photo or video online, touch someone's body, like their hair, back, or arms, sit next to or with someone, shut a door to a confined space, hug someone, or give unsolicited feedback or advice. If you're using the worksheet, pause the video and write down an example of how you might ask someone for consent. There are lots of ways to ask someone for consent, but the most important thing is to use language that you're comfortable with. If you're using the worksheet, pause the video and write 3 consent questions that you would feel comfortable using with the people in your life. Consent and boundaries work together to make sure everyone's needs are being respected. Each consent question comes with a boundary answer, whether the answer is hell yes, hell no, or something in between. For more information about setting and respecting boundaries, check out our Wildcats Respect Boundaries for Students training. If you're using the worksheet, pause the video and write down how you might respond if you ask someone for consent and they say no. If you ask someone for consent and they say no, here are some tips for how to manage that rejection. Don't try to convince or coerce someone. Respect their boundary. Just because they said no to one thing doesn't mean they're saying no to everything. Consider asking if they'd be open to a different activity or approach. Rejection or hearing a no can sting, but it's also a part of life. Recognize that their decision isn't about you. It's about them and their needs or boundaries. All right, if you're using the worksheet, pause the video and write down 3 things you learned from this presentation. Great job completing this training on practicing consent. For more information, we encourage you to check out the resources included on the slide. You can also find them in the video description. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to email us at healthpromotion@cwu.edu and follow us on Instagram at CWU Health Promotion to learn more about our upcoming events and giveaways. Thank you for taking the time to learn how to build a culture of respect at CWU.